Hey there, my name is Christopher Yule, and I am so excited to be your host and your guide as you go through the AI stock trading system course. Now, this is the 5-step system to take the guesswork out of trading in only 10 minutes per day. Now, listen, I know that's going to be hard to believe when you're getting started here, but this is exactly how I trade. This is exactly the background of how I made 10minutestocktrader.com, which has gone on to serve thousands of people and been the podcast that I host, the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, has been downloaded close to 1 million times now. And this is the foundation. This is what I do day in and day out. But this didn't come easily. But I am going to show you everything you're going to need to know using AI to trade and to just completely transform your portfolio, just transform your way of trading, transform potentially your entire life once you figure this out. Now, I will say that there is no get-rich-quick scheme here. This is taking the foundations of how to trade successfully and then layering in other systems, the AI stock trading system specifically. So through this course, we're going to be covering a lot of different topics. We're going to be covering 19 different modules to get you up to speed on how to use the AI stock trading system. And then we're going to have 10, at least 10, there may be even more, 10 real trade examples where you're going to watch me go into my portfolio and make these trades and execute this system from top to bottom. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So you're going to learn a lot as you go through this course. And it's really divided into 3 different sections. We have the phase 1, which is the foundation section. That's the first 14 modules. And then phase 2 is the strategy. That's the next 5 modules. Each part of the strategy only takes about 2 minutes. But you need to know the foundations in order to move into the strategy. Do not skip straight to the strategy because you won't understand what we're talking about unless you've gone through the foundations first. And then finally is mastery. And that's what I'm talking about there. That's where I have gotten to in my trading and where I want you to get to in your trading. And you're going to go hand in hand with me inside my portfolio watching me make these trades. So who am I, right? My name is Christopher Yule, like I said here. And I'm just going to share with you some of my backstory real quick. I went from humble beginnings in Texas, rural Texas. I grew up in a town that had 3,000 people. And in that town of 3,000 people, I think there was 114 in my high school graduating class. And I was definitely an overachiever, right? I wanted to be the valedictorian, but I came in 4th place. But that's okay, no big deal. But school didn't teach me any of this. I have learned through my own Wall Street tuition when I blew up my account twice, which is why it says to broke twice, how to successfully trade. And then after I did that and I launched my podcast and I started to figure things out, I won a couple of awards. 2 awards in particular. It was I won the top 100 people in finance for 2 years in a row. Now, there's some other things that I've gotten, but it's not really important what I've gotten as far as awards. What matters is that I figured out how I needed to trade in order to fit my personality, and it didn't lock me into, quote, day trading or being stuck at a monitor or being stuck as people would imagine a trader would be. It's the complete opposite. My trading literally can be done in 10 minutes per day. The AI stock trading system, when used correctly, you can be in, you can be out, you can be on with your day. And you can do 99, probably all of it from your phone, which means you don't even have to log into a computer to see everything. So with that being said, I started, from humble beginnings. Then I went to a small school in Arkansas called Henderson State University. And that school certainly isn't setting no records, right? In fact, they had a scandal a couple of years ago where the whole school may have been defunded, but it seems like they may have been able to resurrect that. But, having gone from rural Texas to a small university in Arkansas, I felt that I was on an okay track, right? I managed to graduate with no debt, and I decided to get my MBA there as well. So I have an MBA. And I entered the workforce at probably the worst time in history, which was like it was January 2009 is when I entered the workforce, which was actually really hard to enter the workforce. There were no jobs. And so February 2009, I finally found a temp job in downtown Dallas. And so I moved down to Texas where I'm from. And just kind of started going from there. And then about 4 months later, in June 2009, I started at a company called Raytheon, which is a giant company, 75,000 employees, multi-billion-dollar a year company. And at Raytheon, we actually had the ability to trade in the company-sponsored 401k, which was actually pretty neat. In fact, I contributed $0 into that 401k whatsoever. But I managed to have money in there that was company provided, I guess you could say. And it was vested all up front, so I could do what I wanted with it. So I started trading, right? How old was I then? Probably about 23. What any 23-year-old guy would do. It's like, hey, I got free money. I'm going to turn this into more free money. I cannot wait. So I started trading, and if you've been trading for a while, you've probably come across leveraged ETFs. And I thought that was my golden ticket. I thought, hey, if the S&P 500 moves 1 point and this leveraged ETF moves 3 points, well, then this is a gold mine, because stocks always go up, right? Which is not true at all. But if I buy this and then stocks go up, I'm going to make 3 times my money. This is awesome. So I started trading that. And literally, I didn't even open a chart. I had no idea how trading actually worked. I never knew of an indicator. I never knew of a moving average. I certainly never even knew about AI, which came much later. But I had some successes. I remember specifically there was one time I was standing in the shower. I just made $800. I felt like a genius. And I'm looking around like, you know what? I could do this. This could really work out for me. And it probably wasn't even 2 weeks later, I'm in the shower again, looking around going, I just lost all of those $800. Maybe this isn't for me. And so that's how my trading went for about 4 years. Is I would make some money, I would lose some money, but at the end of it, I didn't go anywhere. Right? It was probably a net zero game, which was more than likely the best case scenario that I could have had at that time. Because since then, I've paid a hell of a lot more Wall Street tuition, and we'll go through more of that later. But it planted the seed, right? When I was in my MBA, I really got deep into finance, and I'm like, wow, this is where I want to be. And then going out into the workforce and working in finance, I figured out, this really is where I want to be. And then I left that job, went to another company, an insurance company. While I was there, I got a CMA, a Certified Management Accounting designation. And I've been working in corporate finance for a decade plus. So when you look at where I've come from, literally from a small town, went to a small school, didn't really achieve all that much up until that point. But with perseverance, I made it into the world of corporate finance. So I'm a legitimate financial professional that's teaching this AI stock trading system to you. I didn't just get lucky. There was a lot that I learned along the way. And then after I started trading, like, significantly, like when I really started to make money, I blew up my account twice. And that was really, really humbling. And that, let me just tell you that story real quick. So I left Raytheon and I started another company and moved on from there. And then one day I was talking to some colleagues, and they were saying, they were talking about Deutsche Bank, and there was something going on with Deutsche Bank where it was bad news coming out. And I remember my colleagues saying, hey, if you feel so strongly about the price of Deutsche Bank going down, maybe you should go out and buy some puts. And like, I completely had no idea what he was talking about. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know I've heard about puts. Like, I know it, but I have no idea what it is. So I was one of those nerds who kept all my textbooks from college. And so I went over to my desk, and I'm thumbing through all my books there. And then I see my finance book, and I pull it off the shelf, and I'm like, okay, let me figure this out real quick. And I put it on my desk. It's one of those finance books that weigh like 84 pounds because it's got 963 pages. And like the earth shook whenever I set it down. And then over on the side, I'm one of those people who like take lots of notes and highlight and put tabs and everything. But this book had 2 tabs in it. This 900-something page book had 2 tabs in it. One of them was for bonds, which bonds are kind of wacky in their own way, with the price going up, with the yield going down, whatever. But the other tab was options. And I'm like, well, that's handy and unexpected. So I flipped the tab, go to that page, and I find everything I'd want to know about puts. You know, the price of the put goes up in value as the stock price goes down. Which, you know, that's just like the, what do you want to call it? That's the definition of puts. But at that point, I'm looking around like, wait a minute. There's a bigger power here. I had no idea what puts were. 5 seconds later, I'm into this textbook that has 900 pages. And I've got this one tab for this one page that talks about puts. And I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. So I start Googling it. And then I realized, like, you could literally make money this month and every month and all kinds of leverage that you have in the power of your hands whenever you trade puts. And I'm looking around like, this is incredible. How did I not know about this sooner? How do I get started? So I look at an options chain, and if you've ever looked at an options chain or remember the first time you looked at an options chain, you probably had the exact same thought that I had, because an options chain is just like filled with numbers. And I'm like, I have no idea what all these numbers mean, but I want to make money. How do I trade this? What do I do with this? So that was really where my journey into trading started. So I spent 5 years spinning my wheels, not really going anywhere. And it was like that one day when I learned about puts, it's when everything changed. Now, options are divided into calls and puts, and we're going to go into a whole lot of that in this course. But I was like, okay, I want to trade these options. I want to start trading puts, right? But I don't know how. So I started taking these online courses, and I started learning more and more and more, and I got obsessed. I remember specifically, I would come home from work, I would get on the computer, I would take these courses for hours, I would make notes, and at one point I was dreaming about them, right? I remember dreaming about iron condors, and that's an options trading strategy. I remember literally laying in my bed, I can picture it right now, I'm laying in my bed, cozy as could be, you know, snug under the blanket, and just seeing pictures of iron condors, you know, dancing in my head like a kid on Christmas Eve. And so I was like, okay, I'm ready. I know what to do. Let's get started. And so I cashed out that old 401k with Raytheon, and I was looking for an account to open. And I found one that needed $5,000 to open the account. So I'm like, okay, I think I've got that much money. Let me go see. So I cash out the 401k. And whenever you do that, there's taxes, there's early withdrawal fees, there's all kinds of stuff. And when I got that check, like, this is when I knew I was on purpose. That check, when I remember standing in my kitchen at the counter, you know, ripping it open real quick, seeing it was the check that I wanted, pulling that check out. I needed $5,000 to open the account. That check, written on that check, was $5,000.15. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Like I had no idea what I was doing a few weeks before that, and here I am, a sign from a higher power, with a check in my hand for the exact amount that I needed. I was like, holy cow. I got to get started. This is it. And so this turned into the first time that I blew up my account. So I'm ready to go. I learned all about options. The election's coming up. Things are going awesome. And so I decide I am going to buy tons of out of the money calls. Because like I said earlier, my thought was that stocks only go up. And if I buy out of the money calls, I'm going to make a killing. And I bought all the calls. Everything's going great. And then I remember going to church and being in the pew, and I remember specifically praying, please let this trade win. Please, 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 God, let this trade win. Because if it didn't win, I was going to have wiped out 2/3 of my account in the first 60 days. And that's exactly what happened. and I felt like a total failure. I had studied for months, felt like years. Like I spent every waking moment of my life up to that point trying to figure out how to trade. And then to be so devastatingly wrong within the first 60 days of opening my account, losing 67% of it in one trade, I had no idea what I was doing. And still now that the pain of that just sits deep inside me, like, what were you doing? Why did you do this? My biggest lesson there was that, like, A, I didn't know what I was doing, and B, I didn't know how to cut my losses. So the first time I blew up my account was I didn't know how to cut my losses. And I just felt demoralized. And then, to add insult to injury, I had to tell my wife. And I remember driving in her car. She was driving, which is unusual, but I remember we're driving down the Dallas North Tollway, headed home, and she's driving. I'm in the passenger seat, and she must have asked, "Hey, how's trading going?" And I was like, "Well, not good. You remember that $5,000 I started the account with? Yeah, that's at like $1,300 now." And she's like, "What did you just say?" Yeah, I lost like 2/3 the account. I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember her saying something to me that just made me, not her fault, but it made me feel like a total idiot because I hadn't thought about it sooner. My wife is a genius. Like, she actually was a valedictorian of her high school. Funny enough. But my kids and I, we always refer to her as a genius because she is super, super, super intellectual. And I love that about her. Like, number one thing that I love about her is how smart she is. And she looked at me like, straight face, and she said, "Can't you learn to trade with fake money?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can actually. There's paper trading." Ah, what an idiot. And half of me was like, "You blew this, Chris, and this is never gonna work out." And the other half of me was like, "Dude, she's totally right. We could go learn to paper trade, and then we could do this again. We got this." So I put everything in cash, and I'm like, "We got this." So I spent the next 6 months or so saving up money and learning to paper trade. Like not just learning, but I managed a paper trade account as if it were real money, taking notes on it, watching every step that I made. Like, okay, I got this, like tracking it over time. 6 months went by and I'm like, yes, I'm ready to do this. I got my $5,000 back. I'm ready to go. And I open my account and I'm like, let's do this thing. So I started making trades. Things are actually doing a lot better. I had learned the execution of the trades. And so I started trading more. Had some wins, had some losses. Account was starting to grow. I actually was seeing growth. I remember specifically somebody asking how it was going around the time that we went to Disney World. I remember this specifically, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute. And I'm texting them back like, all-time highs. This is awesome. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I decided that I was going to pick the bottom in gold. And at this point, gold had been dropping like a lot. And it was hitting like multi-decade lows. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am smart. I am what they call a contrarian trader. I'm going to pick the bottom. So as gold is clearly moving down on a chart, like day after day after day, down, 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 I decide I am going to go long gold. And do you know what gold did? Day after day after day, it continued to go down. I'm at Disney World and I'm pulling up my phone and I'm looking at it and I'm like, not again. The next day I pull it up, not again. And my account, which had just hit new all-time highs, not again. Day after day after day. And before, when I hadn't learned how to cut my losses, this time I not only hadn't learned how to cut my losses again, but I also didn't learn about trading with the trend. Because if I had gone short gold, I'd have made a killing. But instead, I went long gold when it was going down, and it continued to go down, and I didn't cut my losses. And do you know what happened? Again, I lost another 2/3 of my account. And I'm like, God, why? So if you've come to the AI stock trading system and you've also had an issue with keeping your account, I get it. And this is some of the backstory as to why I had to create something better. What I had learned from my trading gurus was to be a contrarian trader, try and pick tops at bottoms, don't cut your losses, all this garbage that led me to losing my account twice. And I feel really bad because these people who I learned from have a giant stage, have a giant presence online, and yet they will never know the damage that learning from them did to my portfolio and my psyche and everything else. It did help me to realize that there had to be a better way. And that's how this all started. There had to be a better way. I am not going to do this again. What's the better way? That's what I'm going to show you in the AI stock trading system. And along the way, in creating the better way, I created the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, which has been incredible, which has really helped build the AI stock trading system. Because I've been able to leverage the knowledge of all these professionals and experts that I had dreamed of meeting one day, and having the podcast allowed me to just literally talk to them. Say, what are you doing? What are you doing right? What would you improve upon? And then I put all of that into my own trading, and I watched as my account just grew and grew and grew. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And then one day I had these crazy guys reach out to me, and they were talking about how they trade with artificial intelligence. And I remember taking a phone call, and they found me because of the podcast. And I'm looking at them, or I'm not looking at them, but I'm on the phone, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, this is so much baloney. There's no way. And then they're like, yeah, let's show you inside the data, inside the portal, and you can see exactly what we're talking about. So I go in the portal, and it's the freakiest thing I had ever seen. Like, they were telling you stock XYZ was going to go from $99.42 up to $100.12. And do you know exactly what happened? The stock went from $99.42 to $100.12. And it was like, oh my God, you guys just found a way to print money. Like this is incredible. What? And so, like, I have been working with them day in and day out to develop something that traders can use, enhancing their portal, making things work. And you're going to be getting access to that in this course, but you're also going to be able to learn not only how to trade, but how to trade with that AI so that you can, totally transform your trading. And that was the biggest deal, is that these people were coming into the portal and they were saying, I don't know how to trade with this. This is great and all, but I have no idea where to get started. And that's where this course came from. So I've taken my decade worth of trading experience, and we're combining that with the AI data that you're going to have access to. And this is where the AI stock trading system came from. And this really is how you can manage a portfolio, take the guesswork out of trading, as they say, in only about 10 minutes a day. It's going to blow your mind once you get started into it. So let's move on to the next slide. Why make a course? Well, like I said a minute ago, the first reason I want to make the course was because people kept asking me, hey, I'm using this platform, but I don't know what to do. And my first thought was, okay, I'm going to email them back. And I'm going to email them back. And over and over and over. And then I started making videos for them. And it still wasn't like connecting, right? And so I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's just make a course and say, hey, we want to give you a system that works. Here is the course you need in order to use the system. Okay? Because if, like, imagine you're learning to drive a car. You are handed the car keys. You get in the car, but you don't know how to drive it. You don't know how to put it in gear. You don't know how to turn the steering wheel. You have no idea what those things on the floor do. That's what this course is. This course is your driver's ed to get you from where you are to where you want to be in your trading, and by using AI in the process. And at the end of this course, you're going to have a 5-step action plan to get you to where you can trade literally in 10 minutes a day. And you can manage a portfolio of any size, from 1,000 to 100,000 to $1 million. This works in all of them. Now, this is a bold statement, but I remember literally sitting in this chair in this room and thinking to myself, holy cow, this is actually really easy. And like, why did I make it so hard before? Like, I remember sitting in this chair, just thinking to myself, why was this so hard? Like, just do that and this and add it all together. Follow the system. And it just works. And it's so much easier. And I mean, I only say that because I really want to encourage you to know that if you've struggled with trading, you can do this. You can learn how to do it. And I know exactly what it's like to fail, as I've talked about. And as I talk about on my podcast all the time, you know, I am the farthest person from being perfect. But having this system in place allows me to keep my losses small and let my winners run out of control. And that's a whole module that we're going to cover later. But I know what it's like, and I know where you've been. And I want to help you achieve the success that you're looking for. And like, there actually was a point where I had lost my account the second time. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have this money, but I have no idea what to do with it. But I want it to grow, right? People make money all the time trading stocks. Why is it so hard for me? I have no idea what to do. And I mean, trading can be scary. I know that. You know that. The thought of losing money is not a pleasant thought. But with this system, you're going to figure out, you know what? There's going to be throwaway trades, and they happen. Not a big deal. And this is a whole topic that, like, there's whole YouTube channels dedicated to fake gurus. I got to tell you, like, it does make me sick to hear about these people. I just recently watched a video where they were talking about fake TikTok trading gurus, and how this 18-year-old, 19-year-old was talking about how you can take $100 and in 1 year make $1 million. It's just math. Dude, you have no idea. I don't think you've even traded $100 before, because there's so much bullcrap on the internet from fake gurus. And in fact, I was just emailing like a big string of people that I wanted to work with, and so many of them, like, all of the emails were bouncing back like undeliverable. Email address doesn't exist. And I was texting with some people on my team, and I'm like, dude, could you imagine if you were actually a customer of theirs and you wanted to get support, and this is what happened to you? You pay them your $297 or whatever it is for their course, and like, their emails don't even go through. Oh, they'll be sure to take your money, but God forbid you ask for a refund. That ain't never going to happen. So yeah, the people out there just make me sick. And like I said earlier, I mean, I have been in finance, like a legitimate financial professional, multiple certifications, multiple awards for over a decade. I am no fake guru, and I'm excited to take you by the hand and to walk you through this process as we get started. Now, like I said earlier, you're probably having some suspicions that it seems too good to be true. That was the exact suspicion I had when I first started working with the AI data. But there was a time when I was on vacation, and I had pulled up their platform, and I'm like, let's just try it. So it was in Comcast, CMCSA. And they said, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember them saying it was going to go to like, let's call it $45. And it was at $43. So I was like, okay, I'm going to buy an in the money call and an out of the money call. It's probably like $200 total max risk on the trade. Let's just see what happens. So I started the trade, and it was almost like magic. It was like as soon as I bought the calls, the stock price went up. It was like it was waiting on me to buy the calls, and the stock price went up. And it hit their target, and I cashed out, and it went back down. And it was like, what just happened? This worked. And I was showing my family on my phone. I'm like, look what I just did. It was because I had the AI data. Like, this is unbelievable. I was like, let's go out to lunch. So I treated my family to lunch. And ever since then, it just, I was hooked. It was literally like witchcraft watching it happen. So, you know, it may seem too good to be true now, but as you are going to see yourself firsthand, you're going to have access to the same data. You're going to see how incredible it is. Now, we're going to have 3 phases of the course, as I mentioned earlier. Phase 1, do not skip this section. You will not understand phase 2 and phase 3 unless you go through phase 1. Make sure you take phase 1. I can't stress that enough. If you're struggling in phase 2, go back to phase 1 and figure out what you're struggling with, and then proceed back up to phase 2. And then finally, in phase 3, you're going to see these trades literally in action. I am going to just like walk them through. I'm going to say, here's this, here's that. This is what I'm talking about. So I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've made, how many podcasts have I made? I've made, at the time of this recording, just right at 400 podcasts. I've made some webinars. I've made some other stuff, but I think this is going to be the most fun thing that I get to do. And I am so excited that you came here. And you know what? With that being said, let's get started. Let's dig in. Let's begin your training right now.